When you talk about A/B testing, the most common example given is testing colors. For normal everyday e-commerce brands, this is a complete waste of time. You as the owner might care what it looks like, but the customer doesn't. They want to make sure it's easy to understand and easy to find all the products. Testing colors is for the big guys. Google, Airbnb, Booking.com. So this is an exact story about how Google decided what shade of blue generates the best results. Their lead designer even left the business because of this challenge. And they found out that this small change made them another $200 million in additional revenue every single year. Look at Google's homepage. It's one of the simplest pages on the internet, but gets the most visitors in the history of the internet. There's a simple logo, there's a bar, and there are 2 buttons. That's it. This page was not designed to be beautiful. It was designed to be effective. Up until 2006, Google was run by engineers. They made all the decisions. And Google decided to hire their lead designer, Douglas Bowman. His job was to change the cohesiveness of the different elements on the site that before was only decided by engineers. And what he found will surprise you. At Google, every decision is made with data. No guesswork or opinions. Everything had to be backed up with data. And Marissa Mayer ran search and user experience at the time. And 2 of her colleagues were arguing about the best shade of blue. Not the color, but the actual shade. To any human being, they would be exactly the same and you wouldn't expect a different outcome. So her solution was to run it as a test. They eventually chose 41 different shades of blue, ran the experiment and tracked all the clicks. When Bowman, the lead designer, found out about this test, he was furious. He said after all those years working in design and working at this big tech firm, I don't need a spreadsheet to tell me what shade will perform best. So they ran the test and he had to prove his case with the data. The winning result? A slightly purplish blue, the one that we know today. Google switched all their links on Gmail and the search results to this color of blue. This example made Google so much revenue that it has become one of the most cited examples in conversion rate optimization. Bowman, the lead designer, years later wrote a blog article called Goodbye Google. The blog post went viral. When the design world read it, they said, finally someone says it. And when the engineer world read it, they said, feelings aren't results. So on one hand, we have the $200 million test. And on the other hand, we have a world-class designer. These were arguing for years to figure out who is right. But what nobody talks about is that they're both actually trying to prove the same point. And understanding what this thing is really the most valuable lesson in conversion rate optimization. Here is what Bowman wrote. Yes, it's true that the team at Google couldn't decide between 2 blues. So they're testing 41 shades between each blue to see which one performs better. I had a recent debate over whether a border should be 3, 4 or 5 pixels wide and was asked to prove my case. I can't operate in an environment like that. He eventually left to become a creative director at Twitter. He wasn't arguing against the data. His point was mainly that if you need a test to figure out if your border needs to be 3 or 4 pixels wide, you don't have a design system and you have a spreadsheet. But a spreadsheet cannot help you what to design next. So eventually, who was right? Google or Bowman? And actually they both are, and this is why. So Google is right in the sense that any design decisions that are made have real financial applications to the business. By choosing what actually works, the business generates millions more in revenue, especially at that scale. And this is a mistake that a lot of e-commerce owners make. They change the site by adding new features and by improving the design, but perhaps that doesn't necessarily mean that the site will perform better. You always have to test to figure out what works. Now, on the other hand, Bowman, he is right too, because through CRO, you're basically getting incremental growth in the direction you're going, right? So by adding these links and making them different colors, you're going into a direction and testing what shade works best. But there's something we call in CRO local maximum problem, and that is you're only testing things in a certain direction, but you're basically optimizing what could be replaced entirely to get a better performance. So this is definitely a black spot when it comes to CRO. You need to make sure that your hypotheses are right, that you're going in the right direction and that you're solving the right problems. Through data, you can go into these right directions. But by just purely A/B testing, it's very hard to make drastic performance changes. The way to normally go about this is to first go for bigger changes, bigger swings, and then later optimize. By creating 3 completely different pages, you're very likely to see very different performances. And then if you find your winner, there's still incremental growth that you can gain through A/B testing. And eventually, the purplish blue wasn't magical. It's the one that had a very good contrast with the white background. And this is a very common mistake that we often see being made. It's not about the color, it's about the contrast and how easy it actually is to read something. Okay, let's wrap things up here. Very interesting lessons here. Testing is crucial to improve the performance of your store, but don't only rely on incremental growth through A/B testing, but actually hypothesize and come up with completely different designs. Be bold in the decisions that you're making, and that will eventually lead to an improved performance of your store. Are you wondering what's holding your store back? Definitely leave your link down below, and we can support you as a CRO agency to improve the performance of your site.